Good morning to those listening. Welcome to the Design Leaders podcast. Every day I speak with candidates looking to grow in the world of design, development and construction, and I speak with market leaders at the peak of their career who regularly talk about mentorship and helping the next crop of leaders in development. How can we help industry professionals reach their goals in a small but ever-growing industry? Each episode, I want to provide a great opportunity for professionals of all levels to learn from a market and thought leader about avenues for development, areas to focus, how to speak about their project experience, and over time, help guide other professionals in their longer term goals and motivations. This morning, I'm here with Ken Mohr, President of HERA Lab Planners and Principal of Crime Lab Design. When thinking about who to invite as an industry and market thought leader in lab planning and design, I knew Ken needed to be my first guest. Having spent a decade with HOK as a lab planner, Ken was the first employee of HERA Laboratory Planners back in 1997, just a year after it was founded. And now 25 years on, Ken is the president of this specialist lab planning and design firm. Ken, I appreciate you coming on this podcast to kickstart this series. So welcome, Ken.
Thank you, Jakey.
Appreciate it. I've known Ken for about a year now, so I've got a general understanding of his background, which is dead interesting. But for those of you that don't know Ken, let's jump straight into it. So firstly, Ken, how and why did you get into architecture and design in the first place?
Well, Jakey, I have to say, give credit to my parents. My father was a lifelong farmer, and then he ended up joining the Peace Corps. He was in the first group to go to South America, where he met my mother, who was a lifelong Catholic, music performer and school teacher. Mm-hmm. Every day as kids growing up, I worked the family farm with my father and brother and my two uncles. And I was the oldest of five. So I had a lot of responsibility to watch out for everybody to make sure everything was okay. My mother would have liked me to either become a priest or a doctor. None of that happened exactly. After they married in Brazil, they moved back to Illinois and continued working the family farm, where my mother turned her big personality, her Brazilian cultures and personality towards sales. She sold everything to everyone. And whatever she sold, she was the best at, reaching the top salesperson in her area. My father continued as a farmer, but he also held a second job as a machinist, and that was with World Color Press. Mm-hmm. There wasn't anything that he couldn't fix, including family trials and tribulations. In high school, I had a great mentor, Mr. Thompson, who taught me drafting and the early concepts of architecture. Mm-hmm. I was also able to parlay those skills the following summer and worked for Mr. Perry, who was a president and the owner of Contemporary Homes. It's a prefab home builder in the town I grew up, Pinckneyville, Illinois. This kind of a lifelong process of learning with my parents and mentoring that I received in high school kind of led me to architecture, where I received my associate's degree from SIU Carbondale, and then a bachelor's of science in applied technology, and some graduate work that I did at the Paris American Academy in Paris, France. And then, as you mentioned, my first 10 years of getting out of school was with HOK in the Science and Technology Department, where I had the chance to work with terrific architects, lab planners, and made some great friends. Mm-hmm. Then I was hired as the first employee by Janet Baum and Lori Sperling, the founders of HERA Lab Planners. And that experience with them and the mentorship that they shared with me of everything from sales to HR to running a practice was invaluable. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my wife, Jeannie. Her patience as a special ed teacher has given me the ability to travel around the world for HERA while she worked and managed the house and the kids. So all those things kind of led me to where I am today, and everybody deserves the credit and that lifelong mentorship from each of them.
Interesting. So it goes as far back to Mr. Thompson, Mr. Perry, and obviously Mrs. Mohr now.
Yeah.
But you alluded to there, you started your career first 10 years in that S&T division with HOK. So having spent 35 plus years in S&T and lab design. How do you feel about spending your whole career in this very niche sector of architecture?
I love it. There's not a day that doesn't go by that there's new challenges and new hurdles to overcome. And lab planning, early in my career, I spent a lot of time in the pharmaceutical industry, animal facilities, compounding rooms, and things like that. Big corporate cultures, trying to meet the bottom line. I spent a lot of time working in academic institutions, universities all across the United States, where they were, trying to find new discoveries in the research, but then also creating little fiefdoms for themselves, trying to get their tenure. And most recently, it's been forensic science and helping crime labs and medical examiners facilities all around the world, and trying to, exonerate the innocent and put away the guilty. So it's been a wide range of experiences and lifelong lessons. And like I said, every day is a new challenge, something interesting, never been bored, not once.
Interesting. Well, challenges and lessons, kind of, whether it be, Janet or Laurie, or it's your kind of leadership at HOK, how do you think that they would have described you in the early stages of your career?
I think people would have described me as someone who was eager, always looking for another workaround with a problem or a project, a solution. I think they would have described me as a hard worker, really dedicated and loyal. You see a lot of candidates that, spend 2 years here, 2 years there, 2 years here, and 2 years there. There's nothing wrong with that. But they don't get a chance to really kind of set and grow their roots into a culture. I think my first 10 years at HOK, I had that opportunity to become friends with the architects and the lab planners, to create some lifelong relationships, and them helping me and me helping them, not just on a project basis, but personal issues as well. They were friends, and I think that's important in today's world. And then moving to HERA, and now, celebrating here really soon, 27 years of HERA. The same thing, being in one place for all this time, and the kind of things that we're doing didn't hinder my experiences, but really helped me create a deeper understanding for what the firm could be, what the firm should be. I think they would have, and I know, still talking to Janet and Lori today, I know that they saw something in me that was the opportunity for them to also invest their time, energy, and effort into to create a bigger, better HERA.
Well, I've got to say, from what I've seen, I think that effort that was invested was clearly successful. 27 years later as the president, it's obviously worked out. But 27 years on, similar sort of self-reflective question. How do you think your colleagues, your peers, your employees now would describe you as a leader?
Let's see. I think people might say that I'm humble, that I'm caring, that I have their best interests at heart. I think those would be probably some of the qualities that they might suggest. I know that the clients that I've worked with, particularly in the forensic industry, over the last 25 years or so, I have clients that come up to me and, refer to me as their son, all joking, that they call with questions about their existing facilities, just being helpful, just being there to assist in any way possible. And I think they would, I think they appreciate that for sure.
Well, listen, I've spoken with, candidates in the market, lab planners, lab designers, and after speaking with you, without, trying to blow too much smoke, I think I would tend to agree from what I've heard from these candidates that, jump on a call with you. Um, but what is something, and it can be any leader in your past, but what's something that you learned from a leader in your career that you've taken on board in your leadership and management style now?
Well, I think, anything that touches you in your career that is a negative, trying to find the positive aspect of it and turn it around into a positive.
Mm,
So if people didn't feel like they had the time to listen to an issue or try to solve a problem, then I think that trying to find the time to listen to people, to be a good listener, to be understanding, to be caring, um, would be a takeaway from working with past folks, people who had the time to either teach me a particular skill or show me the skill, which is different, right? If someone takes the time and I have the time to be taught, then that could be a lifelong lesson.
mhm,
If you're under the gun and trying to meet a deadline, maybe I just need someone to show me what needs to happen.
mhm.
And I still use those skills today. I had someone also tell me, this was way back when at HOK, to always ask before you accept an assignment, always ask the W's, the what, the why, the where, the when, the who, um, and understand really what your supervisor is asking of you, so that you can go and accomplish the task that they're looking to have accomplished.
Interesting. I'm going to press you now. I'm sure there's probably going to be one or two out there that want their name thrown in. But if you could pick one person from your past, that understanding, caring nature who really had a crucial impact on you, who's a leader from your past that you really respect and why?
I think I'm going to say Jeff Strohmeyer. Jeff Strohmeyer is a registered architect. He went to U of I, University of Illinois, and he was working at HOK when I first started there. And Jeff's a big guy. He's a cuddly teddy bear of a guy. But he's also can be demanding and, in meeting deadlines and wanting work done a certain way. Jeff today is a vice president at HOK, St. Louis office, in the science and technology department. And so, yeah, I learned a lot from Jeff. I learned not only the aspects of lab planning, lab design, but also how to work with people in a professional setting, how to encourage them, because he always encouraged me.
Mm.
Um, I learned a lot from Jeff. And so, yeah, I'd have to give him a lot of that credit at HOK.
Interesting. Well, listen. Eventually, I'm hoping he listens to this, and I'm sure he'd be, happy to hear the demanding like teddy bear analogy there. Um, moving on from your own development and your own growth, and kind of focusing more in design specifically. HERA works on some really interesting and complex projects. But if you could design or build anything, money being no option whatsoever, what would you design?
Well, you know, wow, when was it? It was probably like 2006, 2007. We were designing with NBBJ a crime lab for Kuwait.
Mhm.
And at the time, doing the design, the Kuwaiti oil prices were like $175 a barrel. And we were designing it like it had no limitation.
Mhm.
Was the first facility that I had designed or been part of, I should say, right, as a lab consultant. That was 750,000 square feet. That was going to employ 200 or 2,000 people. in this building. We had to make accommodations for separate space for rest and for work, honoring the culture, the Muslim culture. We had to create prayer rooms as part of the programmatic space, and even bomb shelters because of the area that they were in and things that they had lived in their past. That building is now currently under construction. So with the ups and downs of the oil prices and things like that, it's now back and it's under construction. It's probably another year or so before it's finally completed. But it's pretty impressive. NBBJ and the design process that they had in place created what looks like a sand dune. The curvature of the building and the way the air would cut through the sand to shape it is what the envelope of this building looks like. And then, of course, the challenge of putting rectangular laboratory space in this zoomy, curvy building was another design challenge, which we did and took and accomplished. So it was pretty cool, pretty amazing project back in the day. Again, that was with HERA and Prime Lab Design, doing this project internationally, and I had the chance then to also make like 7 trips back and forth to Kuwait and live there, spend time in their culture, and great people, very grateful for everything that we were doing for them, and hopefully in a year they'll be moving into a new facility.
Interesting. So, over 15 years in the making, and if it's slated to be completed for next year, I bet you're, dead excited about that. I'm always interested and, fascinated to hear the functionality between, a functional space and kind of adding that extra flair, hearing about it being designed as a sand dune, really interesting. What is something along those lines, something in your career that you don't tend to get to talk about a lot, but, you are really proud of?
I think what I'm really proud of, and you're right, I don't get to talk a lot about this, maybe once a year at the at an anniversary dinner that we would have for HERA folks. We do that yearly. We do it regardless. We did it during COVID. We did it virtually. We've done it in person. And this last year, we had the chance to take everybody who could come, 22 employees, to Cancun, Mexico. Mm-hmm. And then we invited their plus ones to come as well. And it was a great time. And it's just a way to pay tribute and to recognize the successes of the employees, the staff, the HERA techs, as we sometimes call them. And not just in the trip, but then we have a dinner and a celebration, and we call everybody out individually. We identify their successes that they've had throughout the years. And then there's the possibility for additional promotions at that time, recognizing people who have passed the architectural exam during the year, things like that. All the successes that everyone brings to the company. And I think that's key, because if they weren't successful themselves, then the firm wouldn't be successful. Mm-hmm. Being able to celebrate those successes, I think, is something that, we don't share with the public on a regular basis. We have a newsletter and it identifies when people have been promoted, but every day someone is making a huge contribution to the firm in one way or the other, that is not only beneficial to their own career, but is beneficial to the firm. And so, having the opportunity to celebrate everyone is just, it's really special.
Isn't it? Sounds that, taking that whole firm to Cancun. I think, when this does go out and a few candidates out there hear about that, I've got a feeling you might get a few applications after hearing about that trip. But what's something now that your team is working on that you find particularly impressive, particularly noteworthy? And it could be with Crime Lab Design, it could be with HERA, a combination of the two, but something that the team's working on right now.
Well, honestly, I think there's probably a handful of things, within HERA, and besides just managing the work schedule and getting the work done, which is great. Again, the firm continues to grow every year, not just in headcount, but in financial revenue. Excuse me. It's the committee work that we're doing. We have a committee that is currently rewriting our HR policies and handbook. We have a committee that's doing the design initiative, that's working on publications and finding projects that are noteworthy that we need to submit for award competitions. We have a committee that focuses on technology. What are the newest trends and tools, and how can we best utilize them to help our clients understand what they're getting? A committee that's working on benchmarking and post-occupancy evaluations that are taking data from other projects and creating kind of the a HERA roadmap or a guideline for designing facilities that are doing post-occupancy evaluations to better learn of the design accomplishments that we have had and what they like and what they don't like, right? Hearing both the good and the bad. Mm-hmm. And so I have to give a lot of credit to the associates and the senior associates in the firm, the folks that are directors and managers of particular departments for all their work and that they're doing. That really is, I'm truly proud of, and to pick one would not do it justice.
Yeah, interesting. I think, one thing I ask every candidate I speak with that has been in one space for so long is why choose that space? And something I often hear is about, falling into that space or having a particular, interest in the complexities and the problem solving of that space. But when you first started out, what were your goals? When you first joined HOK, S&T team, what were your goals? And have you achieved those goals? And I guess, Ken, have they changed over time?
Well, I think goals do have to change over time, because I do think that, putting small goals in front of you, even a goal to just be happy. And what is it that's going to make me happy today? What am I going to do that's going to make somebody else happy? I think is important. And those goals always change and evolve. When I was at HOK, I can remember being envious of the assignments of some of those big, glorious assignments and projects that were coming through HOK in the late 80s, early 90s, and being a part of those teams and trying to be a part of those teams, and having to continue to learn and understand and develop my own skill set, to continue to show others that I understood what was happening, to put yourself in positions where you have to stretch your own comfort zones, I think is important. And so, it wasn't necessarily a goal of mine to accumulate 1 million miles on American Airlines, but I did in those first 10 years at HOK. But if I hadn't have done that, then I wouldn't have had the chance to work with other architects and engineers and interior designers and structural engineers and all these people across that company of HOK, which I really admired growing up, and then going to architectural school and, trying to work for that particular company and throw my hat in the ring, and then was able to actually get a position there, and then succeed and lifelong learning, and then apply that to HERA. I think, that goal was achieved getting now at HERA and the new goals of being the president of the company. So that wasn't necessarily a goal of mine that I was scrapping, climbing my way up the ladder. It just I was just doing my job and every day trying to do it the best that I possibly could. And was never in a position where I felt like, make me an associate and I'll act like an associate. It was always accolades that came well after doing what was right and doing what was good for myself and the company. I think that there's a lot to be learned there, that having goals are terrific, gives you some focus, but it's not something that you're broadcasting every day to your supervisor that hey, one day I want to be president, or one day I want to be a principal. It's putting in the time and the energy and the effort, and then through that work, it's how one, I believe, achieves their goals.
Right. Well, I think that, that's not just specific to, architecture and design. I think, candidates across the board, even in recruitment and other industries, can probably take that on board as well. So I think for those listening, that will probably be, really helpful. I think it might be a tough question, but what's a goal that you've had throughout your career that you've not yet achieved, and maybe even gone through some disappointment at all, but what are you still working on to this point, Ken?
I don't know. I wish that I had a better relationship with my two oldest daughters. They were young. Well, when they were born, I was young in the business at HOK, spending lots of time on the road and lots of time traveling, and then had a divorce. Kids moved away, but sometimes those things take some time to evolve, to ferment, to hopefully become better. Some time has to happen for everybody to grow up, including myself. But I kind of wish that relationship was better. Not to take away from the great relationships that I have today, again, with all my staff, my business partners, Amy and Carlos, but and my wife today and her kids, and helping them and mentoring them and educating them on the rights and the wrongs, and my opinion, and listening to them and their opinion, and just trying to be a better father, or be a better stepfather, be a better person, better husband, and then I think that also makes for a better employee, and hopefully a better president with her.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with me, Ken. I know that's not necessarily a professional focus, but I appreciate you sharing that insight there. I think, for those listening, Ken is arguably the most traveled man in the industry. Locking him down for today's podcast and today's meeting was a struggle, but we managed to get him. And it sounds like travel has been a feature throughout your career. You've obviously alluded to Kuwait, and I think you went to Nepal a few months ago. Where's somewhere you've been? It's kind of the most enjoyable trip that you've made.
Again, I think they all have certain aspects. There was one trip I did with a colleague of mine, Lou Hartman. He and I, who kind of started and created Crime Lab Design, and coming from St. Louis to New York, making our way to Kuwait, and then from there working on that project in Kuwait for a week, continued around the world to get to Guam, and then working in Guam for a week, and then making our way back to the States. So yeah, 2 weeks around the world, with 2 different project sites. That was pretty exciting. The work that we did in Vietnam, Vietnam was super nice, super clean. People were just terrific. And there we're working on 3 mitochondrial laboratories for 3 different agencies to advise them on design solutions and mechanical solutions that would better the work that they were doing for mitochondrial work. That was in association with Project 50, which was the United States and Vietnam kind of working together to identify the identify human remains that they had found in Vietnam. And, for us in the United States and our involvement, I think we're probably somewhere in the low 300s or the high 200s of individuals that we're still trying to identify from our time there in Vietnam years ago, that conflict. And then, but the Vietnamese and all those indigenous people there are still trying to find and identify 1.2 million decedents. And every time they build a new road or expand a city and it grows, they find another mass grave. And being able to help them with the kind of technology, I think was incredible. So, traveling to these places, traveling to Egypt and getting to see the pyramids and ride a camel, to spending weeks in Singapore. Again, just beautiful country, beautiful people, incredible food, having those opportunities to expand. But then the best thing of all of that travel is coming home, right? The best thing is being able to come back to the United States and know the freedoms that we have and what people have sacrificed to get us to this point today. Being able to be with family, being able to be with your close and dearest friends, coming back home is always the best thing about all this travel.
Lovely. Well, recruitment hasn't actually taken me to, those sorts of places, Egypt, Kuwait, Singapore, but it did bring me out to New York. But no, I totally agree. The best part of those, traveling or even just holidays and vacation or work trips is coming home. And I couldn't agree more. Ken, I'm going to ask you a few questions now, kind of some advice for industry professionals. I've spoken with a lot of people in the past and we've discussed HERA, and I feel like, coming from you and a bit of advice from you would be helpful for more junior professionals in the market. But when you're looking at a resume, Ken, what do you want to see from a top quality candidate who's focused in lab design and lab planning? What do you want to see on that resume?
I think that if I'm looking for a candidate that's in the entry level or junior level of lab design, I'm looking for someone who has a great understanding of how architecture comes together. How do I document it? What are the processes involved? What's their understanding of, good architecture, problem solving, where they went to school, their ambitions to become registered in the future, if they're not, the people that they've worked with, having spent a lot of time in this industry and knowing that someone's worked, with other experienced lab planners and to what degree, I think is always interesting in the early in their career. And I say early in their career. So someone with 3 to 7, 8 years, maybe as many as 12 years of experience. It definitely takes, and Janet had believed this, Janet Baum, the founding partner of HERA, she believed that it takes, 5 to 7 years to create a good lab planner, lab architect, lab designer type person. And I think it's true. It's at least panned out that way for the most part, that once people are exposed to a series of projects and different aspects of those projects, and what I'd be looking for again in a candidate, or someone who's been exposed to lots of different things, a good variety of work, that for the last 7 years all they haven't done is just drafting or picking up red marks, that they've had the opportunity. And of course, it's always good to find somebody who's done extracurricular activities. And it can be both personal and family, but they could also be at the firm. So any writing, any speaking at conferences, participation that way to show, the growth of the firm. It's, as a consultant, as HERA is a consultant, I think one of the biggest transitions for younger staff is leaving a big firm, a prime firm, and coming to a consultant firm where every day a different prime architect you could be working with is asking for something different. Different projects, different primes, different construction managers, different engineers. It definitely adds variety and spice, but it can be challenging in juggling all those aspects of the project. So finding somebody who, had lifelong challenges, juggling family issues, juggling project issues, other struggles in their own life, and successfully made it through those struggles, I think makes for a good candidate for sure at HERA. And then, of course, the other kind of candidate that we're always looking for are people that are seasoned veterans in doing lab planning and lab design. Bringing on subject matter experts that are just a wealth of knowledge and are willing to mentor younger staff, that are willing to make the travel, do the project, be that client concierge to help them through the design process, the programming process. That sort of individual that has 20, 30 years of experience, subject matter expert in their own field, I think is another person that has a lot to give and still has a lot to obtain coming to HERA with our strict focus on laboratory planning, design, and documentation. So I look forward to seeing more candidates from both ends of the spectrum.
For sure. Well, listen, I'd love to find tons of those candidates out there. I think, those 20-year veterans, you'll know, I know, there's not altogether that many of them. It is a small pool of, niche talent there. Assuming you've seen the resume, you've got the idea from the individual. I think we've, kind of got an idea of also from that explanation there, what it is that you want to hear in an interview as well. But on the other side, what are some mistakes that candidates make in the interview process with you that you can highlight now and, help them perhaps not make those mistakes in the future?
I think, doing interviews either in person or virtually, it's still important to be aware of your body language and what you're projecting to the interviewer from the interviewee. Eye contact, I think, is really important, and when and how you use that. Understanding your surroundings, right? If you're doing something virtual, what's the background? What's it say about me? What's it saying to those who are doing the interviewing? I think that if you're passionate about what you do, that passion will come through. You don't have to force it. Trying to get yourself as comfortable as you can before the interview. If you're nervous, then quite honestly, tell me that you're nervous. I'd rather know that you're nervous during the interview than watching you kind of dart around and shake and come up with my own story, right? You never want anybody to develop their own story about you. So telling them your story, telling them in any way that you can, and answering the questions, and or just taking a moment to let them know that that you're dealing with something that you've been dealing with forever, be it a health issue, be it something personal, that, rescheduling is perfectly fine. If it's not the right, if it's not the right moment for you that you're really going to shine, then let's find the moment. Because honestly, when we're hiring somebody, we're hiring them to be successful. I want to create the right kind of environment for them to be successful. And if you don't think you can be successful at HERA, or then it's not the right match. But my goal is to hire people so that they personally can be successful. If they're with us for 3 years, if they're with us for 30 years, a lot of that personal success and what keeps them happy and keeps them coming to work every day, I think, is important. But if it's, if they've lived their life at HERA and it's time for them to move on, then there's no love lost. Wish them the best, and who knows, maybe one day after they gain more experience, they'll come back. But if not, that's okay. I mean, we've had, what's the last count? Something like 128 people come through HERA in the last, in the 20s, almost 27 years of being HERA. And those people have moved on to other practices, HDR, Smith Group, different places, Jacobs. They're successful. They're doing a great job, and I'm okay with that. I think that's fine. I hope that their time at HERA, what they learned, and what they're able to share with their new clients and their new organization, makes for a better industry worldwide. Better architects, better leaders, better designers, so that the work that we do helps the industry of science and technology, that broad industry, really reach a new echelon of service to its community, to its world, to the world, to solve the biggest problems. Those things are happening in the laboratories that we create.
I think that focus on individual success probably has something to do with your, brand reputation in the market. It is a very strong reputation in the market amongst candidates out there. And I think that focus on individual success probably has a big factor to do with that. In the future, let's start off kind of the next 3 to 5 years, and then I'm going to ask you for your expectation for decades in the future. But over the next 3 to 5 years, how do you think we will start to see this industry changing? And if you don't feel like that timeline is long enough, I'll give you a longer timeline to give me your thoughts and your expectations on how the industry will change.
I think in the last couple of years, and with the pandemic, it's really forced us to think differently about the facilities that we create and how those facilities need to respond to the occupants in those facilities, as well as the community at large, and the kind of issues that everyone is dealing with. And so architecturally, at the AIA organization, of reducing the carbon footprint, I think that's incredible. That's great. We're probably going to see lots of changes with building materials, 3D printing, building systems that are really going to change the way that we currently design facilities. And some of that's happening. Bigger changes to come, right? I think that this virtual environment that we're living in, be it the multiverse or the metaverse, and that kind of connectivity to people, connectivity to information, I think is going to have a huge impact on the way that we work, the way that we communicate with folks, the way that we design. Things have the ability with technology to be done faster, more accurate. Introducing AI into this arena, I think, is also happening, and even on the artistic side of things, with architecture, as well as the scientific side of architecture. We're going to see some big advancements here quickly. I think that it's exciting. It really is. It's exciting to be a part of where we are today. It must have been exciting, 30 years ago when technology and things were changing and the industry was changing. It must have been exciting 100 years ago when they were dealing with their issues. And even, the St. Louis flu and its pandemic, a few more years than 100, but things like that cause everyone to stop and take a look and make an account and try to find a quick solution to fix it. I think in the future, water is going to be a bigger issue for everybody, just fresh water, drinking water, and having access to that water. Our space exploration, with NASA and things and reusable rockets, just so much of that is changing, that we as architects, engineers, contractors have a hand in helping propel those industries ahead of their time, so that bigger things to come for this industry and this planet that we live on.
Listen, those are some great goals, and if you're taking them with HERA as well, I can hear the excitement. I can imagine there's an excitement amongst the employees as well. But on the topic of HERA, I do speak about HERA with candidates in the market, but coming from you as the president, is there anything in particular, since this will be going out to a fair few thousand candidates in the market, is there anything in particular you'd like to touch on in regards to HERA, when those candidates hear about this podcast?
Well, I think that what HERA is looking for in candidates are people that are self-reliant, people that have a passion for what they do, that have a continued a goal of learning, that every day I'm willing to learn something new, and what can I do to understand it. We're looking for people that we can call friends, people that we can call teammates, looking for lifelong relationships with these candidates, people that are problem solvers, that no challenge is too big, and what can I do to help. I think that and I think that too says a lot about HERA, that HERA feels the projects that we chase, the jobs that we're assigned to, part of that problem statement is, what can we do to help? What can we do to alleviate what's keeping you up at night? What can we do to ease your concerns about this project? And then find ways to alleviate their concerns. I think we do that on a regular basis, and we continue to do that. And I think that, is just another one of those gold nuggets that really identify what HERA is and what HERA is doing.
Great. Well, if people do want to learn more besides speaking with me, I'd encourage you all to follow Ken on LinkedIn, check out the HERA website, and take a look at some of their projects. Because, as someone who's not an architect or not a lab planner, I still find them, incredibly interesting. So I'm sure you guys out there who are architects and are lab planners will find it even more so. Listen, Ken, we've been through, your development, design, we've been through your goals and some industry advice as well. I really appreciate you, giving your thoughts and giving your insight here. There's going to be a couple of thousands of candidates out there that also appreciate all of that too. So we're going to finish up here. And as, the first guest on the Design Leaders podcast, I can't, give my appreciation enough. And thank you for taking the time to speak today. Really appreciate it, Ken.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. It's been a treat. Jakey, I think you did a great job. So keep up the good work. I think this is a great idea. Giving potential candidates another resource of another insight into what's out there, what is the industry looking for. And I hope that, me speaking on HERA's behalf, but also speaking on the behalf of the lab planning, lab design industry, as well as architecture, hopefully candidates do have a greater, deeper insight to what's out there and what can be achieved. And honestly, we look forward to more candidates this year.